All right, now to some breaking news out of the White House. President Donald Trump says Indian Prime Minister Modi has agreed to stop buying oil from Russia. Mr. Trump made that announcement on a social media post saying this will help end the war in Ukraine. So how? That's the big question. Let's go to Washington and CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe. So Ed, how significant is this in trying to end Russia's war in Ukraine?
Well, it's significant that there's a U.S.-India trade deal, which would take tariffs on Indian goods down to 18%. The thing is, we don't know for certain that India has agreed to sell off or stop buying Russian oil. We should note that in the president's statement, he makes mention of this. Narendra Modi's government and he himself in his social media announcement about this says nothing about that fact. So let's wait and see if indeed that is the case. The idea of buying petroleum from Venezuela would be interesting because I vividly recall having conversations since this happened with since the invasion of or the extraction of Maduro happened and this plan to redevelop the Venezuelan oil industry began in earnest, that it would be really difficult and uneconomical to be sending Venezuelan oil that far to a country like India. And if that were to happen, it wouldn't even be possible now for several more years until all those other oil fields within Venezuela are redeveloped. So again, that might be a long-term aspirational goal, but there's no evidence, at least not yet, that they're buying Venezuelan oil anytime soon.
Pretty fascinating. We'll wait to see what Narendra Modi has to say. Well, let's put that aside. I've got to ask you about this. People talking about the Kennedy Center, word of a closure. What's behind this?
Yeah, and remember, this is a place that maybe is well known to a lot of Americans, but isn't necessarily somewhere they've been. This is the largest performing arts center in Washington, D.C., of course, home to the Kennedy Center Honors every year, home to an opera house, an orchestra performance space, a dance hall as well, and seen as the nation's premier and really almost official government-backed performing arts center. The president announcing last night on his way back from Florida that he's planning to shut it down starting in July, so long as the board, which is stacked with hand-picked choices for it, approves doing so. What's unclear is whether he's just gutting the interior, whether he's taking it all down, whether there is some other specific thing that needs to be fixed. This is a pretty large facility that sits on top of a key piece of roadway here in the Washington area, so taking it down entirely would be quite detrimental, frankly, to the ebb and flow of Washington. But renovating parts of it inside would be consistent with what many who are familiar with the building have said does actually need to happen. There is a fair amount of infrastructural work and repair that is needed. Whether that takes 2 years and whether these renovations would include things like the president's promised marble armrests on theater seats, as he's posted about before, remains to be seen. We may get some more details from the White House later today of what exactly he's planning. And if you're wondering, does he need to get approval for this? Well, outside of the board, if it's just internal renovations, not necessarily. If it's something beyond that, it may require buy-in from some other entity here in Washington, and we'll wait and see what that is. But remember, all of this comes amid declining ticket sales there, amid a handful of performers canceling their appearances, the Washington Opera already announcing plans to get out of there. There'll be questions about the National Symphony Orchestra, whether it has to find a temporary home, and you know, just a lot more questions about yet another Trump renovation project here in Washington.
All right, Ed O'Keefe, thanks for those updates. We appreciate it. Have a good day.